Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Common Council meeting, Monday, June 22nd. I am filling in. My name is Ryan Rossi, and I'm District 8 alderperson. I'm filling in for the mayor tonight. He had some health, he's out because of health reasons, so here I am.
Ryan, Gerald's coming.
Oh, we can wait for Gerald.
So, gavel. We're just going to make the official meeting.
You want me to start it
Well,
with the...
when you gavel in the meeting. But it's,
Gerald's here.
yeah.
Val, please call roll. Here.
Here.
Mikulowski.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Holt.
Here.
Daniel.
Here.
Rossing.
Here.
Mayor Frederickson is absent.
Okay, let's stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to take a brief moment of silence for remembrance of all active duty personnel, veterans, first responders, and healthcare providers. Thank you. Next is going to be public comments. I think we have somebody that has been arranged to speak tonight. It was approved by the mayor. You can just say your name. The camera's right over there.
My name is Katara Hoskins. So my name's Katara Hoskins, and I'm a Rhinelander High School graduate. I was asked here to talk about an incident that happened to me on June 1st, 2020 here in Rhinelander. I was walking into my apartment building down on Main Street, and I heard yelling from the street next to me and turned to see and hear a man yelling hurtful racial slurs towards me, and he proceeded to throw a McDonald's cup full of water at me and then continued to yell inappropriate slurs towards me. And things like this have happened to me before. Some incidents were more drastic than this one and less drastic. They vary, but it always leaves me with the same feeling. And this feeling is another thing that Mr. Barnett had spoken to me about sharing, because I think that what I experience personally in Rhinelander are things that a lot of you might not experience, a lot of your children might not ever experience it, but just because you're not seeing it firsthand doesn't mean that it's not present in the community. I cannot speak for all African Americans or Black Americans here in Rhinelander or anywhere else, but I can just tell you how I feel and have felt as a young African American woman growing up here in Rhinelander. There's no way to put all of my feelings into words, but when it is in the moment when things like this happen, whether it's in Rhinelander High School, JWMS, Central, Pelican Elementary, Walmart, the Quick Trips, everywhere, it's always a feeling of hopelessness that overwhelms me, hopelessness that no one in immediate contact with me or in the community, nobody outside of what you see on the media is really rooting for it or really is trying to help. Hopelessness in the sense of I know that nothing will be done to these people when they say things to me, in the sense that while kids in school would taunt, poke, and pry at me, while a boy could grab me by my ponytail and threaten to lynch me, I was the one that was in trouble at the end of that day because I retaliated against him. These incidents continue to leave me with feelings of anger, hopelessness, loneliness, shame, and the feeling that after many years, maybe I am in fact less than my white peers. But I know that that isn't true, and I know that that's not the case, and I appreciate the opportunities that have been given to me to speak out on this issue. I've always wanted and been willing to share my personal experiences in hopes of not only change here, but everywhere. But I think it's most important to start here for me, and probably many of you, home as Rhinelander, and that's where I think we should see the most changes. And I know that the African American community isn't widely represented here in Rhinelander based on our population numbers, but just because we don't see large groups of African Americans doesn't mean that kids like me who have to walk into school and not see a teacher that looks like them, not see classmates that look like them, go to stores, not see anybody in the stores that look like them, workers that look like them. There's no representation in the community, and nobody can change that. You can't make African Americans move here, but making it known that it's supported and that it's widely supported, and it's not just me, it's not just a protest on the courthouse, because I don't think that that shows that the city of Rhinelander is behind it. I think that shows that there are a select group of individuals and community members that are behind it. But if it's not in your face, widely said, just blatant support, then I don't think that it's gonna change much or mean anything. And I think that that's why we don't have a lot of African Americans here, and I don't think it has anything to do with our city as a city. I think it's the fact that if you go through town, you're not going to see a Black Lives Matter flag. You're not going to see anything supporting it. You're going to see a Donald Trump flag. You're going to see things like that. And we have the hodag everywhere. And I'm not asking to replace every hodag with a Black Lives Matter fist. I'm not asking for every single community member to attend Black Lives Matter rallies by any means. I'm just asking that if it is supported, if it is something that everybody feels strongly about, then our community in some way, shape, or form should reflect that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and your courage tonight and sharing. Thank you. Any other council person have anything for public comment that they received? I don't know if Zach or Val, have you received anything for public comment? They're indicating no. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Zach. He's going to introduce our one of our guests tonight.
Okay, so we've got a special guest this evening that the council has previously engaged with to do a wellhead protection white paper and some analysis for the city. His name is Dr. James Tinjum, and he's up here in front. Professor Tinjum, I'll read his bio for all of our benefit, is director of the Geological Engineering Program in the College of Engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Is responsible for outreach, research, and continuing engineering education in the area of waste, geotechnics, remediation engineering, and environmental sustainability. Jim directs UW's online graduate program, Sustainability Systems Engineering. In addition to directing and teaching internationally attended professional short courses, including a renowned course on solid waste landfill design. Jim has 30 years of experience in environmental remediation, splitting his career between industry and academics. Professor Tinjum, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. And first time I've been out of quarantine in Dane County, so it's good to get out and see that life exists somewhere our bounds. So what my goal is to present less than 20 minutes on a primer on PFAS, or per and polysulfonated compounds that you probably heard in the news and possibly have drank, like most of the U.S. population, in your drinking water, some concentrations of PFAS. So this is a very early effort on education and just looking at what we might have in the city, how we compare with other places in the state, in the nation, and just what might some of the pathways be should this be considered a public health situation worthy of much further exploration. Now, I have a draft presentation that will be flashed up there. It's not quite complete because there's some figures that are being done. I'm having input from my colleagues at the Water Action Team Rhinelander, Water, which I am a member of, and that we meet every Friday to consider issues before us and what that pathway should be. So without further ado, PFAS is a chemical that was made to be virtually indestructible. Okay, so it's basically a chain of carbons with fluorines on it. That carbon-fluorine bond is the strongest covalent bond in organic chemistry. Okay, so it is a man-made chemical that was made to not readily be destroyed. So the great thing about this compound is it has a tail on it that is repulsive to water and lipids or grease and oil and dirt. Okay? So if it's repulsive to those materials, if you put layers of them, it's a really good stain fighter. Soil doesn't bind to your clothes, it repels moisture and it repels grease. So correspondingly, that has been used across our country since manufacturing in about 1940s in Gore-Tex and Teflon and many of the name products from DuPont and 3M. What I'm saying is that it is ubiquitous in our society because you put it on your raincoat, you put it on your body in the form of a sunscreen, wax for your skis, you name it, and then when you're in your household and you have Scotchgard on your carpeting, that eventually is going to turn into dust, or you're going to throw that carpet into the landfill. Eventually, parts of that are going to make it into the environment. And parts of that is potentially environmental damaging. So, some of the sources, and this is going to be released to the public in a couple of weeks. It's draft up there. I know it's being live streamed, so people with good eye vision might be able to see some of the details. I'll just take you through it, what's in here, because this part of our work is just public education. Not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to blame anybody. We're just looking at what is the science and what is the issues that we might have here in Rhinelander. I do say we, obviously I live in Madison, but I will be staying with my brother in Wausau on my way home. I'll be stopping in. So it's in household waste. We breathe it, we drink it in our water. It is at much higher concentrations in industry that uses this either as the original manufacturer or printing companies or other companies that use these products to make other products. It can be in commercial waste and it can be in legacy landfills. So landfills that are out there that are closed that may have municipal solid waste, industrial solid waste, and they may be contributing this to groundwater transport if we have leaky situations, to treated water discharge from wastewater treatment plants, because wastewater treatment plants do not remove PFAS. Basically, they send it through the system either in the sludge or in the treated water at some concentration. And we also, across the country, are looking at biosolids as a source of material that may accumulate this materials for the eventual impact. So as I already indicated, this is our fortunate but unfortunate modern society. We are wearing these products, we go camping with rain gear, We make nonstick frying pans. Of course, this issue, once my family found out that I was working on this, it cost me $1,200 because we threw out all of our frying pans and our cooking gear in our house and had to buy new stainless steel ones. I'm not saying that that's what everybody should do, but that's what my family did, and we actually now drink filtered water in Madison because we also have PFAS in a well close to us at single-digit to teen concentrations. Hopefully you don't love microwave popcorn too much or eat too much pizza in your life, because for decades, the material that they applied to pizza boxes and microwave popcorn bags to make sure that the grease doesn't go through the paper, that's PFAS that we've used a long time in our life. So just a few things is that PFAS is not just in Rhinelander, but everywhere. It's ubiquitous. I just wanted to give this statistic from 3M to give an indication of where these industrial products might have gone. When 3M closed out production of a couple of these compounds, 41% was for paper and packaging protection, 36% for textiles, leather, carpet treatment, and fabric protector, 19% as industrial surfactants, additives, coatings, and 3% for firefighting foam. So you just have an idea where this is out there in our common materials. All right, you pay attention to the news as I do. This is out there. There's been lots of articles written about Rhinelander. Anybody see the movie Dark Waters? Just like my class in Madison, nobody wants to interact. No, perfect. Well, Dark Waters is about the DuPont facility that manufactured C8, which just basically means there's 8 carbons in this PFAS. And this really, this lawyer that went after this really found out about the disposal of this, and there was a very large study based on the population of this city in West Virginia about resulting health compounds because that was in their water. So from West Virginia to Wisconsin, PFAS is here and all around us. All right, so why do we care? A couple of reasons that we care is there are what we call casual studies that linked population studies. So there's a large C8 study, and they looked at the health of 170,000 people in West Virginia that had been had interactions with PFAS in their groundwater. And very statistically significant, that study found that PFAS, although there wasn't a direct mechanism, again, it's a casual mechanism, is that high cholesterol, colitis, thyroid hormone issues, testicular and kidney cancer, and pregnancy-induced hypertension as some of the examples of things that PFAS may contribute to. Okay, I want to say may because the science is catching up about what's going on. They don't know what it does in your kidney and how it directly causes kidney cancer. They just know that if you happen to drink a lot of PFAS-laden water, you have a higher risk for these types of diseases. So that is a concern. The second concern is that 2 of your city wells have been shut down, at least temporarily, maybe permanently, we don't know, because we have concentrations upwards of 90 parts per trillion. Okay, that's a really big, crazy number, parts per trillion. It's really small. Okay, so 20 parts per trillion is 1 drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Or 1 part per trillion is like 1 second in 36 and a half years. Okay, just for perspective, but still it's there and it is measurable. In Wisconsin, the guidance from the Department of Natural Resources is 20 parts per trillion. So thus, when Mayor Frederickson shut down the well, did receive a letter from the Department of Health indicating that they were affirmative with that decision and they supported that decision. The United States Environmental Protection Agency guidance level is 70 parts per trillion for PFAS and PFOA, two of these compounds, these long chain compounds cumulatively. Those are the things that are very common. So here's the problem. Well, there's lots of problems, but there's also solutions, it is bioaccumulative. So if you breathe in dust with PFAS, or if you drink water, it's going to bioaccumulate in your body, particularly in your blood, in your kidneys, and a few other places. And so once you ingest PFAS, it stays in your body at half of that concentration for between 2 to 10 years, okay? So maybe many of us have been out at the local brewery and you have a couple of beverages, that alcohol, that half-life is about 4 to 8 hours, okay? So if you have a malted beverage, half of that alcohol is out of your body within 4 to 8 hours, okay? PFAS, half of that is still in your body somewhere between 2 to 10 years. Okay? So just moving on, you have pathways include ingestion, inhalation, and it can be transplacental. So you can transmit it as in your blood to your child, or actually also in breast milk. So a particular concern is pregnant females and what they drink. In particular, some of the standards are meant for that population because they are particularly sensitive. All right, so is it just Rhinelander? No, that map that you can't see at the top, but there was a large study that looked at concentrations of PFAS in the drinking water across the country. And I'm not even going to show it to you, but Rhinelander is one of the areas in blue that indicates that it's being measured in our drinking water. You see other places in Wisconsin, West Virginia, that area. So it's across the country. This was an ubiquitous chemical. I created a map about particularly hot spots in Wisconsin, so including military and airport facilities in Madison, in Milwaukee, at the Badger Army Ammunition Plant, Volk Field, and then also Tyco Products in Manitowoc and similar, where they actually use firefighting foam or manufactured it. There are concentrations much higher than we have here in Rhinelander. Okay, so that large study across the United States is some of those things that are indicative if you have PFAS in your water. Is your proximity to industrial sites that manufactured or use the products. Proximity of military or airport fire training areas is a big bullseye. If you use this stuff for firefighting, for practice, you probably have it in your surface water and your groundwater. And then also proximity to wastewater treatment plants, particularly industrial wastewater treatment plants. Again, that's a casual relationship. They don't know if it's caused by that, but they just know statistically when they find PFAS, some of these areas are typically within a mile or two of those locations. All right, so I know it's been a while since a lot of us have been in the chemistry class, so I'm just going to take 30 seconds. But there's a little bit about PFAS, how it's virtually indestructible. Basically, anybody know how hot 1,000 degrees Celsius is? Well, that's hot. That's how much it would take to destroy this compound. We're basically not going to burn it because it's very, very dilute and it's very expensive to do that. But it's man-made. They call it the forever compound for a reason, because it persists. It just has high thermal stability. It does not easily degrade in the environment, and it's highly mobile. So that other side of it is a negatively charged, and other negatively charged things like organics and clays, it's like they repel each other. So basically PFAS wants to go with groundwater. Wherever groundwater goes, it's going to go for a ride. not many things absorb it. All right, that's enough about the chemistry, but it's really cool. If you have any other questions, I'll stick around a little bit. When this gets published, you'll see what a laboratory report looks like. Myself and my group have contacted the State Hygiene Laboratory in Madison and say, what do you look for? Because these laboratory reports are Greek. They're extremely hard to read. So I just point out a few things that you want to look at PFOA and PFOS particular, because those are the things that are most abundant and we know that are out there. We know that the regulatory limits are typically between 20 and 70 parts per trillion. It's not much. It doesn't take much for the science types to be concerned about risk. All right, I said this was in process, so that yellow thing up there is my writing about all of the potential. I'm going to say potential. I haven't drilled a single well. I haven't taken a single sample. This is a benchtop study where I just read everything I can get. I came to Rhinelander about 6 months ago and absconded with about 12 boxes of reports from your landfills and some other things that I could read. So I've been very busy during quarantine catching up. But there's ways that PFAS, I have a conceptual model on how they can move through our environment specific to Rhinelander. It possibly can come from sludge that is disposed of in fields or at your airport. I want to say possibly. These are just mechanisms that are similar to other mechanisms across the country. You do have a closed landfill that received industrial waste and municipal solid waste that's not mined. It can be in sediments and it can go back and forth between rivers and other systems. That graph at the bottom, that yellow thing at the bottom that is like 6 miles long. Remember I said that PFAS doesn't like to associate with other things. It just goes with the groundwater. So what that means is if it is here, there is a potential for it to show up decades later 7 miles away. That is a scientific evaluation and model that this doesn't stay where it is. It will move where the groundwater moves. All right, a little bit about Rhinelander, your geology. You generally have wonderful water. It's precipitation-driven water. The reason is you only got about 70 to 130 foot of glacial outwash sands and gravels. Some silts and lake bottoms in there, but generally it's sand and gravels. What that means is PFAS moves through that very quickly. Your aquifer is not stopping it if it is in the aquifer. It's moving. You do not have bedrock wells because you have massive granite metavolcanics at the bottom that's not fractured. It's not in there. It's near the surface. So when you have your aquifer near the surface, you are susceptible to contamination from the surface. That is an unfortunate fact of life. So I just did a visual diagram next to the Wisconsin or the Pelican River where you might have one of your wells. You can see that the short flow lines closest to the well may take only days for that water to get into the well. You go farther away, it may take weeks. And you go farther out, it might take 5 years for it to get from a half mile away. That's very important when we establish wellhead protection schemes to understand what areas we need to be really concerned about going towards that well. Okay, so that is in evaluation, and but key points is that your drinking water is screened in the outwash sand and gravel. It is shallow, and it's very susceptible to surface contamination. Right. Just a little bit about landfills. It's one of my expertise. Some of the old landfills, and I'm not saying it's the Rhinelander landfill, it's just a general landfill that doesn't have a lined bottom. Material can leak out of the bottom of that, and it can go into the aquifer, and it can move with the water. And so As I want to wrap this up in about 5 minutes, I'll just say that I'm not making any decisions about the closed Rhinelander landfill other than that it is unlined. It was built, constructed, and closed before modern landfill design schemes came into place in Wisconsin. Both industry and municipal solid waste was disposed of in this facility. And some of the leachate or the water within the landfill has historically been charged to the wastewater treatment plant. So one of the potential sources could be that landfill. I just say could be, we don't know. Other landfills are similar sources of these compounds. Now when we talk about sludge disposal, I indicate this because other sites in the United States have demonstrated contamination of groundwater from PFAS from the surficial application of sludges from, or biosolids from wastewater treatment facilities. So what you'll have is, that's an agricultural field, but it could be any biosolids application, is the compounds in that via infiltration and other mechanisms are going to make itself likely into the groundwater, particularly if you don't have clay or silt regions that are going to retard it from getting there. So that's something that you can investigate. It's another potential source area is biosolids or sludges from wastewater treatment facilities is a potential source area. If you're in the public and I'm concerned, you know, I'm pregnant, my wife is pregnant, my niece is pregnant, I'm concerned because I've heard that Rhinelander has some PFAS in their wells. Well, number one, those wells are shut down and your other wells are below the regulatory guidance as far as I can tell from reviewing what I have. But if the public is concerned, one of the first things that I would recommend is a home filtration system because it can help, particularly granular activated carbon or reverse osmosis. Ion exchange tends to be a little pricey, but there are approaches where we can remove PFAS from the water if you are concerned as a member of the public. All right, so what happens next? And this is basically some really early recommendations, preliminary recommendations. I'm probably going to come back in a couple of weeks and ask for the next round of study, minor baby steps as we move forward. Okay, what can you do if you have PFAS in your municipality, in your system? Well, number one is source control. Okay. If you know where the source is, and I'm telling you right now, is I don't know where the source is. It's haven't done that investigation. Those can be very expensive investigations. We have some concepts or hypotheses. But source control, we can cap that landfill, we can put vertical barriers in, we can do excavation and disposal. That's typically if we know where we have high concentration source areas, then we can do source control. Second, institutional controls. What does that mean? That means that you put new wells in a new area. So that's an institutional control. You move out of the area that you're concerned in and put a new well somewhere else where you're not as concerned. Or you do more enhanced wellhead protection. So those are institutional things, and generally those are less pricey than some of the things that I'm now going to talk about that cities in New Hampshire and Minnesota have done, where they do water treatment technologies for their municipal water district. Okay, so a city in Minnesota, we've got approximately the same levels that you have in Rhinelander, maybe a little bit more, into the hundreds. They just said, we don't know where it's coming from. It's pretty ubiquitous. They decided to just treat the water. And so that picture on the left is same thing that you can do at your household, you can do at large scale in the city, but there's going to be lots of dollars assigned to that. But granular activated carbon in Oakdale, Minnesota, in response to treatment of PFAS, and in, I think it's in New Hampshire, but another a reverse ion treatment. So there are things that you can do on the water treatment scale. All right. Can you treat this in situ? We haven't figured that out yet as engineers. Basically injection of activated carbon, ion exchange resins where we inject into the subsurface. But if we don't even know where it is yet or where the sources are, you can't treat it in situ. And irrespective, treating it in situ is extremely expensive. So those are some of the things. So what happens next? So my recommendations is to go to your closed Rhinelander landfill and sample the leachate. There are 5 internal wells that we can get access to the leachate. I recommend 2 rounds of treatment, or not treatment, of testing. So each of those wells, a blank, and all those other things that we do as scientists, I recommend to do that in July and another round in October to make confirmation. The really good thing about this is it's low cost, probably about $15,000 or so if you did it through my lab at my university, is you start ruling things out. Okay, do I have PFAS in the landfill or I do not? Your landfill has experienced hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of testing and models in the past, but that wasn't for PFAS. That was for other things. So I don't know what's in the landfill. I don't know if PFAS is there, but it's a fairly cheap thing to just go test and rule it out. The other thing is there's like 4,000 PFAS compounds. So if you test in the landfill and you find you've got 1,000 parts per trillion of this compound, but that's not the compound that's in your groundwater, well, then you can start making deductive decisions. It's not coming from here. The other thing is if you do seek cooperation with the airport that has received historical biosolids from the treatment plant, there's an approach to say, can or could it go from the sludge at the airport to groundwater well 7 or 8? We could do there's another 0 or so on that, but you could do geophysical and geophysics, surficial infiltration, look at the groundwater flow patterns and rule it out or rule it in as a contributing mechanism. I'm working to seek state and federal funding to help with this. So I'm working with water to approach the Department of Natural Resources, and assuming the city, the county, and the airport are on board, asking for funding from the Department of Natural Resources to do this effort that has another 0 on it. But those are some of the things that we can do in the interim as we step forward in baby steps to help understand this problem, think about what we can do about it, and then address it if we need to. And then as we release this white paper, keep the public informed. Make sure they know what we're doing, what we're thinking, we're not hiding anything, this group. I'm working with Water Action Team Rhinelander. We're working on our logo. All of this is coming out. But our mission is to protect the environment, tourism, industry, your drinking water. Those are some of the things we're putting into our vision statement so that when I come up here from Madison, I drink that pure glacial sand and gravel aquifer water, because when I'm in Madison, I'm drinking filtered water from who knows where. So I will leave it at that. I don't know if I went over 20 minutes or not. Asking a professor at University of Wisconsin to speak for less than 20 minutes is a challenge. So hopefully I hit the bar and didn't put the public to sleep out there. And I think that's it. So this whole thing, once I get feedback from legal and other people, that'll be out to the public and everybody can see and share this information. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate your expertise and coming to speak with us and the public today.
All right. I'll stick around after the meeting if anybody wants to ask me any questions. Only 40, I just got to get to Wausau tonight, so I think I can make it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Number 5, under mayor's comments, we have proclamation of July 2020 as Rhinelander Area Chamber of Commerce Month. That is on page 4 in your packet, and I'm going to read that. Whereas the Rhinelander Area Chamber of Commerce is committed to the advancement of its members and the enrichment of the greater Rhinelander community, whereas the Chamber actively promotes the Rhinelander community as the best place to live, work, vacation, and run a business, whereas the Chamber has the commitment and flexibility to provide opportunities, programming, events, and leadership to our community members, whereas the Chamber works with many collaborative partners to champion a diverse business environment and improve the community's quality of life, whereas the Rhinelander Area Chamber of Commerce is redefining what it means to be a member of the Chamber to increase collective impact, whereas the Rhinelander Area Chamber of Commerce wants to collaborate with area businesses, help their members affect change, and fight complacency. Now, therefore, I, Chris Frederickson, Mayor of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim July 2020 as Rhinelander Area Chamber of Commerce Month. Zach, any further comments on that? Thank you. Okay. Okay, under Mayor's comments, under letter B, Mayor's listening session. That's scheduled for June 24th, 2020 at 6 p.m. right here at the City Hall Council Chambers. The mayor is planning on still holding that. Anybody that wants to attend, 6 o'clock, June 24th. Next in the packet is the meeting minutes. Council members, please take just a minute to look over the minutes from June 8th.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from June 8th.
Mikulowski, second.
Motion by Larson, second by Mikulowski. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next will be number 7, ordinances. This will be on page 12. The first reading of this ordinance, which is 2020-07, it's to amend the current fire inspection ordinance. And I guess I would ask Chief Williams, do you want to say anything about this? Or I could have Zach or Steve. Actually, Steve might.
This came out of action.
Do you want to grab a mic and just talk, just so everybody can hear you?
This came out of the council's listening sessions last week. And what it is that we can, if we write this ordinance, the state will allow us to only do fire inspections once a year versus twice a year. And we don't lose any of our 2% inspecting dues. So we'll still maintain the same amount of revenue from the state for doing fire inspections, but we'll have to do less of them.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. You're asking if I need to read it.
Do you need to read this?
He does not have to read it out loud. It is available, and it was part of the agenda. Anyone that would like a copy of it will be more than happy to present it. If you, as councilman, would like to have it read out loud, you could. But it seems like everybody has a copy in front of them. The only other thing that I would point out that this ordinance does do is it does eliminate the 2 times a month, but it also gives the chief the ability to go in 2 times a year, excuse me, But it does give the chief the ability to go in more often if he believes there's a necessary reason to do so. And it's a lot more flexible. Plus, it defines the statutory criteria that is utilized by the fire inspection department. It's really a good update to your ordinance.
Thank you. David?
I believe that that with a 2/3 majority vote of the council, we can waive the second reading and go ahead and pass this. But it may have to have been on the agenda as written that way.
Yeah, if you'd wanted to do that, we should have had that on the agenda
Okay.
as a possibility. It's not on the agenda as a possibility,
Well,
so we'll probably have to wait till the next council
Yeah,
meeting.
in that case, I will make a motion to place this for a second reading and public comment on the July 13th meeting, which is the next council meeting.
Barnett, second.
Okay, motion to second. Val, you got that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Were we not going to have discussion
yeah.
in between?
Oh, thank you.
I do have.
Discussion, Eileen.
I do believe if we do have the second reading at the next meeting, that it should be read out loud. Since we're live streaming, the public does have access to our packets by going on the city council website, but I don't know how many people do. And so I think this is a matter of public safety, so I do believe it should be read out loud.
If I may, Mr. President, the other thing that people have to be very cognizant of, which is coming up next, is there is a public hearing. So anybody that is interested should really attend the public hearing, or at least should prepare their comments in advance of the public hearing. So anyone that has any issues or questions about fire inspections at all should take some time and opportunity to take a look at this and attend or at least submit comments prior to the public hearing, which will be held before the next council meeting.
Thank you. Okay, next, we are going to be going into public hearing.
I think
We need to take
vote
the
on
vote.
Oh,
It's okay.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the public hearing section. We have 3 ordinances on here. The first I'll take, ordinance, which is number 2020-04, amending chapter 4.03.025, which is endangering safety of animals. Is there any public input on this first ordinance? And I would guess I would ask Zach or Val or any council members if they've had anybody that has offered any opinion on this one way or another.
No, I have not.
Okay, Zach? Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to read this again, or say this again for a second time. Any public input on ordinance 2020-04, endangering safety of animals? And a third time, any public input on endangering safety of animals? Moving on to the next.
So just so the record is clear, so the hearing with regard to ordinance
Steve, I can't-
20204,
Steve.
endangering safety for animals, has now been closed. You can't hear me? God, I hear myself like it's tomorrow. What I'm saying is that what you want to announce at the public hearing with regard to endangering safety of animals, the revision of ordinance 4.03.025 and the creation of ordinance number 4.03.025.1, that public hearing is closed, and we'll move it till an action item, which would be coming later. We'll do this with each of the 3 items.
Okay, next is ordinance 2020-05, amending chapter 3.06.12, sub 1, control of weeds and grasses. Has anybody received any public input on the control of weeds and grasses? Zach or Val?
No.
Any council members? Any public input for weeds and grasses? For a second time, any public input on 3.06.12 sub 1, control of weeds and grasses? And a final and third time, any public input on control of weeds and grasses? The public hearing on chapter 3.06.12 sub 1, control of weeds and grasses, is now closed, and it will be moved to an action item at a later time. Third, ordinance number 2020-06, creation of 4.03.02 sub 2, bullying and harassment. Has there been, for the first reading, is there any public input on bullying and harassment? Zach or Val?
No.
Any council members, any public input?
No.
For a second time, is there any public input on the bullying and harassment, creation of 4.03.02 sub 2? And a third and final time, any public input on the bullying and harassment, ordinance 2020-06, which is creation of 4.03.02 sub 2? The public hearing on that ordinance is now closed and we moved to an action item at a later time. The public hearing section is now closed. Moving on to number 9, the consent agenda. Are there any motions in regards to the items on the consent agenda? Tom Barnett.
I'm reading on here on the consent agenda, and I apologize if I'm not understanding this, but didn't we just go over these ordinances to be moved to a future date to be approved, but here it says for approval? I'm confused.
I said at a later time, but yeah, Steve mentioned, I'll let Steve talk about it.
Yeah, so what we've done now is, because there was no comment at the public hearing, so no reason to debate these ordinances which you discussed at your last meeting, they've now been moved to the consent agenda. If you would like to debate them as a council, you have the opportunity now to remove them from the consent agenda. If you vote on them, they will become an ordinance of the city of Rhinelander upon your voting in favor of them, these 3 ordinances. I would also like to note for the record that at your last council meeting, there was a public hearing on the other ordinance that's being listed, and because we did not at the last council meeting vote on that, that's why it's been added to this agenda as a consent item, so that your approval will take all 4 of these ordinances and make them part of the ordinances of the city of Rhinelander if you do vote to approve them.
Okay, thank you.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Barnett, second.
Motion by David, second by Tom Barnett. Any discussion on this? I didn't forget that this time. Thanks, Eileen. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the introduction of new business. We have one of our finest police officers, Detective Josh Camilleri, with us tonight. And he's going to give us an update on the Recovery Coach program. If you want to grab a mic somewhere or step over here to the podium.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Camilleri, detective with the Rhinelander PD. I've been with Rhinelander PD for 13 years now. A lot of changes over the years. One of the most recent, I guess, the one that I want to talk about is the introduction of the Recovery Coach. Last year, the council voted to fully fund a recovery coach to be used by the police department. And in my opinion, it was an amazing investment, a very good one, and something that I would love to see the council take into consideration for this year. We're coming up, August, September is about the time we're going to be needing the funding for a recovery coach. And when I talk about a recovery coach, what I mean is it's someone with a little bit of training. We partnered with the Marshfield Clinic Recovery Corps recovery coach program. And what they did is they gave us a person to come with us and help us, I guess, guide or direct people that are in the middle of maybe a crisis that they're going through, something drug or alcohol related, and we can get them to the correct services that they need. We had a short window this year just because of the shutdown, the lack of face-to-face communications with people. But in the time, basically from October until February, our coach was able to make contact and be introduced to a little over 60 people in town. And they came from a wide variety of education and age levels, really. And it wasn't just someone that was maybe addicted to something or going through a phase in their life, but it was also family members and how to get them support as well. So out of the 60 people that we physically made contact with, I believe our final number for an inpatient, getting somebody from their home and into an inpatient facility where they check themselves in, whether it's 30 days, 45 days, was 3. We were able to take 3 people. I know it might sound like a low number, but even one person, if we're able to pull them out of something that they're going through, offer them services and get them to the correct professionals, is worth it. And I'd love to see it happen again this next year. We were able to, I guess, partly do it with the help of the Oneida County Health Department as well. And with their help again this year, I'm in the process of working on getting some grants to partially fund the coach. If we were able to bring in the coach and the city wanted to fully support it and go all in on it, it would be a $6,000 investment from the city. But like I said, I've been able to come up with a portion of the funding with the grants. And with that, we're partnering with the Oneida County Health Department. We're partnering with Marshfield Clinic Recovery Corps. We're going to be partnering with Ascension and Kohler Behavioral. And then, of course, the city of Rhinelander and the Rhinelander Police Department. I guess if anyone has any questions as far as what we were able to do with the coach, I guess before I get into that, I can tell you that over 250 hours of our coach, that from 2019 and into early 20, over 250 hours of that was directed straight at people and working with people to get them to the correct resources that they're looking for. And then over 800 of that was for public education and outreach programs. So, I mean, we went out and we met with the Human Service Center. We went out and met with Tri-County. We went with Probation and Parole, the Oneida County Sheriff's Department, their drug unit, and I know there's a lot more. I got them written down. So we had social services. I know we tried working with the fire department, and I know I'm forgetting other people, but it was a lot of people that we were able to reach out to and talk to with our coach and kind of build that relationship between us and them as well. Yeah, whoever wants to go first.
Eileen, go ahead.
Thank you. Sounds like a successful program.
Yes.
I'm glad we went ahead and did that. Has there been any talk of perhaps expanding the program to also include mental health? Like if you get a call on a suicide or something like that, where you would take out someone who maybe has more expertise in the mental health area?
Well, I know our department, I think all of us at the Rhinelander PD are trained in the crisis intervention portion of it. We did introduce our coach to NAMI, and we've worked with them. But as far as the focus of our recovery coach, it would be towards drug use, misuse, abuse, whatever it might be.
Tom?
The way you describe it sounds an awful lot like the kind of verbiage that's going on in today's world with instead of sending a police officer to take care of that kind of situation, they'd be sending like a social worker or something like that. Would you say it's along those same lines?
Yes, in a way, because we're bringing someone that has training and experience and a wide variety of areas that they can send these people. So we're bringing them in, we're putting them down with these people, and they're going through questions with them to figure out where their needs are and what exactly they need. I'd like to think we're progressive in this, but I think Three Lakes or Eagle River Police Department had started it before us.
Would you say that this program is being utilized throughout the country, or is it fairly rare?
I don't know of any other police department that is currently using it.
That's impressive. Thank you.
Gerald?
I'm a little confused. Where is the coach located? Are they actually in Rhinelander, and for how much time, and all through the year, or how does that work?
Yeah, so our coach was brought in. They have an office space at the Rhinelander PD. We give them a phone line, access to computers if they need it. And then they're also working, this last coach that we had was working partly with the Oneida County Health Department out of their facility as well. So roughly five or so hours a week, the coach would be used with the health department for community outreach and programs that they had going on. Yeah.
So the person's on call then, if you go out on a call and you think you're going to need them, or do you set up appointments later on? So if you bring someone in who might need the coach, like the next day they meet with the coach, or do you take them out on the actual call?
So we've done a little of everything. I kind of started doing this a few years back on my own, and then learned of it with the Eagle River Police Department and the Marshfield Clinic. They kind of reached out to me saying, hey, did you know we have these resources available? So I have taken our coach with me on calls if I know it's going to be a safe environment for them, and introduce them immediately. Other times I'm getting referrals from a lot of other officers now that are accepting of what we got going on, because we want to use it as let's say an alternative to a punishment. In our line of work, we have a lot of discretion as far as how we handle calls, whether someone gets a warning for something or a citation or a referral to the district attorney's office, whatever it might be. Now we have another tool. We have the recovery coach that we can bring and set them in front of them and figure out where they're at with their recovery, if they're ready for recovery, because we run into people all the time that aren't ready for it. But we want them to know that we have this available to them when they step up and say, yeah, I'm ready for it. I kind of am a thorn in some people's side, and I like to meet with them more often than maybe they feel comfortable at the beginning or really want to. And in my opinion, it's worked. I'd say like 8 out of 10 times we're able to go back and bring the coach in and meet with these people and develop some sort of relationship where they're reaching out to maybe an AODA meeting, or maybe they're reaching out to that inpatient treatment, or maybe they just wanted someone to talk to.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Gerald?
How much does this cost, and what's available in grants to support it?
So this year, the cost has gone down for us a little bit. It would be a total of $6,000. I'd love to see the city put forward a couple thousand. I think I was told for sure right around 4,000 is available for us in the grants.
Andrew?
Did we look into this already, Zach?
This is the first I'm hearing.
Okay.
First I'm hearing of the presentation, so it's very timely. I had the similar question over here, what was the city's investment? Because I haven't seen that aspect show up in the budget, so great
Could we
perspective.
look into it?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, as you mentioned, other hospital systems, I would suspect, given Rhinelander has a presence of the major systems, that there would be a mutual benefit to, especially when these folks are maybe experiencing crisis and the officers are encountering them, and the last place they want to see them is in the emergency department, right? It's very costly to deal with some of those situations, and it's obviously very challenging at that point as well. So financially, it might make sense for the collective to be continuing to invest in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank Josh, too. I know Josh has a passion for Rhinelander, the community. And, I mean, this is community policing, at its best. And we see people over and over that, like you said, when somebody needs help, we want to have the resources available to provide to them. And Josh is passionate about that, and I thank him for that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Next, item B under new business, approve resolution 2020-10 to grant WPS an easement for utility distribution. That's pages 20, I believe it's 20 through 23 in your packet. And I don't know if Zach wants to talk about it or Steve wants to
Steve
talk.
grabbed his mic, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a pretty straightforward request, and Steve was involved in the drafting of the easement and the background of that.
Yeah. Simply what, no, I'm dead now. Simply what this involves is the Wisconsin Public Service has to bring a gas line out to a new system that we have at the airport. So they need permission to go on this land that's owned jointly by the city and the county. All it does is the easement follows the roadway, and it's where the other utilities already are. So it's pretty perfunctory, and it's obviously something that's good for everybody. So I would encourage your support. And I did draft the resolution materials, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2020-10 to grant WPS an easement for utility distribution.
Anderson, second.
I think, all right, Gerald? Gerald with the second?
Yeah.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I guess we could do, we don't need a roll call for this. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Item C, consider a creation of a change order pertaining to the Stevens Street project, which would be incorporation of Lincoln/Oneida Street intersection and the corridor. We have Mr. Mark Barden in the room tonight. If you want to speak to that, Mark? I don't believe there's anything in the packet on this, so Mark, you'll have to listen to what Mark says.
Lincoln Street has been a hot topic. It's pretty deteriorated, a lot of potholes. It's been in rough shape for a lot of years. It is also on the city's 5-year capital improvement plan for a utility project, major utility project, sewer, water, storm sewer. For that reason, the curb is in very poor condition, but we're looking at it as a patch. We want to make it drivable. So the plan is, in talking to Dan and other city staff, to mill to the face of the curb. We'll leave the existing curb in place that's in poor condition, mill out to it, leave that curb there, and add 2 inches of asphalt pavement out to that face. What that's going to do is provide proper drainage along Lincoln Street and give you a nice drivable surface. It's not going to last 15 years, but it'll last until that sewer project starts, presumably in the 5-year range. The limits of this construction are from the west side of the Oneida intersection, going east to Evergreen, basically where the mill and overlay project from 5 years ago ended. So it'll encompass that intersection, which is also a hot topic of conversation, but it'll get that entire area. We approached Musson on this as a change order to the Stevens Street project. They provided pricing. We renegotiated some asphalt pricing. They came down on their pricing significantly for this project. The estimate that they provided for this change order, proposed change order, is $174,000. That's to the limits that I just described. With the milling, with the traffic control, they're proposing to get this done in 2 days. If the council were to say go ahead, they would mill this 1 day into the night. The next day they would pave it. There's striping added to this that is not on this estimate. We're assuming the striping would be $8,000 to $9,000. So $8,000 to $9,000. So what we're looking at is in the range of $190,000 to do a 2-inch mill and overlay of Lincoln Street, including the intersection of Oneida going up to Evergreen.
Questions for Mark? Go ahead.
So the intersection of Oneida and Lincoln, it's only going to be, it's not going to be that whole intersection, it's just going to be the east side of that intersection?
No, it will be the entire intersection.
The whole
So,
intersection?
yes, yes.
Eileen?
I'm just wondering, so the north-south, where north-south and east-west? So from where to where to where?
The west side of Oneida, so at that intersection, the west side, so the Holiday Station side of that.
Okay.
Then moving east. At that intersection will be, we call it the end of radius. So you go to the north side of that intersection, basically towards Burger King, where the curve wraps around. At that end of radius, end of that curve, we'll be up to there. On the
Okay.
south side, same thing.
So we're not coming back any further north on Oneida? That's a shame.
No, no. One thing at a time. I think that's on Dan's list. But no, for this project, it's fairly limited. We do have some wiggle room to extend it a little further here and there. Again, this is unit prices. What we're doing with this, when we establish that change orders, we're establishing unit prices. So if staff cares to extend the limits of that, the price is going to go up based on those units.
If this were approved and the change order was created, when would they start it?
The last conversation I had with Northeast Asphalt is they had hoped to get it done by mid-July. Now, that was 3-4 weeks ago. I don't know if they're still on that schedule, but I would anticipate that.
I'm not remembering from last meeting what you told us about how much money was left in that Stevens Street project, but is this within that?
It is. You know, where the Stevens Street project as a whole is running under budget construction-wise. The last time we looked at it, and this is based on our projections, and a lot can change, and we have added some undercut on the north side of Stevens Street. So there are some changes going on here, but our initial projections is with the addition of Pueblo, the city would still be under budget on the city share of almost $400,000. With this portion, you would still be under budget by about $200,000. That's on our projections, and that could vary either way.
David?
I would like to make a motion to for the creation of a change order pertaining to the Stevens Street project, incorporating the Lincoln-Oneida Street intersection and corridor. If it's within the budget, that intersection, anybody who's driven through that intersection knows that intersection. So I think we should go ahead and get it done.
I'll second that.
Motion by David, second by Eileen. Discussion. Carrie?
Mark, do you feel that that extra 200,000 that you're saying would be left over, would that be enough contingency in case something were to go wrong if we were to pay for this?
Yeah, we're at the point in the project, so the Stevens Street project, all the pipe work is done. We are building road right now. So you'll see, we have it paved up to Woodland at this point. We've staked curb and gutter. We'll have curb and gutter poured next week. And around the 4th of July, we're going to have the binder course asphalt paved all the way to the bypass. What can go wrong on the Stevens Street project is very limited at this point. When you're dealing with the pipe work, that's when a lot of the change orders come about. There will be some additional costs, most likely, adders, deducts through here, but I would say, yeah, that 200,000 is within your contingency that would be needed to finish up this project for sure.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up. So with the paving of Stevens Street, is it going to be like last year where you're just putting the first layer of asphalt on it and then next year you finish?
Correct. It would be
Okay.
it would be exactly like we did this year. For the work that we did in 2019, we just finished up the surface course of asphalt, did the striping. That happened just this last week. Same thing would happen next year. Coming into the spring, the contractor had had the opportunity to do any repairs, the potholes we had on the 2019 portion. They'd do any repairs of that nature, repair any concrete that needs to be replaced, get all those things done, get the structures raised, and then they would pave that final lift. The idea of that final lift of asphalt and waiting that year is exactly for the reason, or the issues that we had in the 2019 portion. We had curb that needed to be replaced, that was damaged or faulty, and we had potholes. So if we were to put the final layer of asphalt on this year, and we had issues like that, you would end up with a scarred surface, and we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
So.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I think that this is, this street is our funnel. I mean, obviously, everybody going towards those businesses on the east side of town. I think it's needed. I don't think that there's any infrastructure work that's scheduled anytime, like you said, 5 years out. So this road needs it, and I'm in favor of it. Any further discussion on the topic? Zach?
And I don't think Mark mentioned it, but I'll mention it since we all don't necessarily, think that any time is convenient for construction. But one of the nice things is I understood with the schedule, ideally the contractor will be able to do this work within about 2 days. So it's not like there'll be a duration of inconvenience to the public, particularly for the reasons you mentioned. It's a very busy intersection and corridor for the city, especially over a busy summer when people are returning to the area. So I just wanted to mention that about schedule-wise.
I'm going to ask Val to do a call roll on this.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Holt.
Very good. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Next is item D. We have the gentleman from Green Golf Partners here, patiently waiting. They're going to give us an update and presentation. Yeah, come on over here. Yep, sure, that'd be great. I remember Kyle because he always usually is here, but I can't remember the other names. Sorry. We'll introduce.
Good evening. My name is.
It's on, right?
Yeah, can everybody hear me? Yeah, here we go.
Pull it up a little bit.
Good.
Yep, perfect.
There we go. Good evening. My name is John Rader. I'm the Regional Vice President with Green Golf Partners. everybody knows Joe Anderson, our golf course superintendent. I know you're famous in Rhinelander for a long time. And Kyle Christian, our head golf professional and general manager at the golf course. Green Golf Partners is a little bit of a history of us here in Rhinelander and who we are. First of all, Green Golf Partners is truthfully a Midwest-based golf management company. And we are in Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and actually Florida. And our DNA is kind of goes back about 10, 15 years or so. I personally have been a general manager in New Berlin, Wisconsin, at a facility there owned by the city of New Berlin that we leased since 1995. And I had been the head golf professional general manager roughly 97 until about 2011 or so, when I started working with Green Golf Partners, working through the ranks and turning regional vice president. And in 2015, I was a partner with Green Golf Partners. And that's when our CEO, now our current CEO, Matt McEntee, who is actually from northern Wisconsin, and he was one of our partners, myself, and then our superintendent slash finance guru, Mike Shaw, who lives in Indianapolis area. He was one of our partners, and then another partner now down in Florida, actually from Iowa, was a partner. So we were all from Midwest, and we were all operators, and we all kind of grew up in the golf business, and that's where Green Golf Partners kind of derived, because we enjoyed golf. How we came to Rhinelander was in 2017, roughly July. We were contacted at the time by Keith Cost, and he had asked some questions and was really trying to figure out operations of the golf course. It had been around for 30 years now, was the anniversary of the golf course, and was looking into maybe doing a contractual agreement just to kind of do an evaluation. So we did, and quite honestly for us, and like I said, Matt McEntee, our CEO, being from northern Wisconsin, grew up, this was near and dear to his heart. He's very much a northern Wisconsin guy. I've grew up in the Milwaukee area, so we really enjoyed the project, and we said, yeah, absolutely, this is kind of what we do. And we were contracted in August of 2017 to do a 60-day evaluation of the golf course operations, which included capital, looking at the property, looking at all the resources for the property, looking at all the standard operating procedures, employees, everything from soup to nuts, which is what we do also as a management company. After we were done with that, we were contacted after the city decided to put out an RFP to manage Northwood Golf Club. And we were, I think, one of three, was it? Correct. Yeah, there was three companies in there. Again, it was very much, this is a labor of love for us, and we really wanted to be here. And so we were lucky enough to be chosen, and we started management of the golf course in March 1st of 2018. So this is entering our third season right now. So during that time, a couple of the key goals that was set forward for us was basically two real big things. At that time, the relationship with the community and the city with the golf course was fractured, and that was very much one of the big things that we wanted to change around. And then also the operational efficiency, along with a lot of the different tools that we can bring to the operations. So knowing that, there was a lot of things that we did. We put into place, changed rating structure of all the rates, the golf fees right away. There wasn't discounts for residents, which was highly unusual. We, like I said, we lease City of New Berlin's the New Berlin Hills Golf Course. We're actually also in the city of Racine. We lease their properties. They have 3 golf courses, and every one of those properties had resident discounts and rates, promote residents, we're part of the community, and that's what we wanted. That never was the case. So that was just one of the real big things that we did, that we looked at. We rebranded, new logos, trying to bring a new, fresh face to the golf club. One of the biggest things that we did do was keep Joe Anderson, obviously. He's a huge resource and a tool for the golf course, along with just being part of the community. That was one of the big things we wanted to do. And then we were able to bring Kyle from Oneida Country Club in Green Bay, who was truly actually a northern Wisconsin guy, right? Yeah, now living in Rhinelander, right on the river, right, and enjoying it. So that's what we really wanted to have everybody be very much part of the community, and that was part of the big goal of bringing the golf course and relations back to the community. And then beyond that, obviously, was all the operational goals of what we were trying to do. So that's been kind of our two-year run in history. Now, it has been interesting. The new normal, as we talk about, that you hear a lot about now, was always discussed in the golf industry about weather. The new normal was weather. Very tough, something new that we've had to deal with for the last 4 or 5 years. So we got off to a rough start, but ended up roughly about $70,000 better than 2017, when the last year that it was run by the city. And then in 2018, Joe had to deal with ice damage on the golf course, and did a great job getting that back. And we ended up a little bit better than that. We were about $20,000 better, and would have been even closer to our goal. And we had HVAC, had to do a full repair. One of the things that we've been tackling was always the capital items of what the facility may need. But we're always trying to balance that as if we are owners with our own money. What are you going to spend that you're going to get out of the property that has to happen? Find balance for us, So we're not here to spend all the money and go crazy for it. We want to make it operationally efficient for you, make it the best property you can, have great service, and provide a value for everybody. That's our goals. So that's kind of how we've progressed. And I think we've definitely hit our first goals really quickly, especially with these guys. And Kyle was a huge help, and working with the city, and Val and Wendy's been fantastic. The second goal of operational efficiency, we've gotten better every year. And that was great to see, and that's been a lot of hard work by these guys also. In 2019, Green Golf Partners went away from being owned by us partners. We actually sold to the largest management company in the world called Troon Golf. Troon Golf came to us, and they wanted to grow in the Midwest. They have over 500 golf courses worldwide, but the Midwest was not a spot that they were really in. They're based out of Scottsdale. And so they really wanted our Midwest-based DNA. And so along with that came, I think, more support, more tools, more resources, because that's ultimately what we're here for, is to give these guys tools, support, marketing, ideas, everything. So ultimately, all the employees are ours. We control everything for you to help take any of that burden off, and report and work together. I know it was a lot of fun early on with Wendy, transferring all the numbers from one budget to another, which was great. But now it's been fairly smooth. So hopefully the only hiccups you hear is if it's weather on our end. Other than this year, the forecast for this year, so everybody understands what's happening now, is obviously with COVID and everything right here, it hasn't affected Northwood as much yet because the season was a little bit shorter. But Kyle and Joel have still done an outstanding job, and through May, the financials were about 35,000 over budget right now. So they are really, really doing a great job controlling expenses, controlling labor, with our revenues right on budget. And June is forecasted to be right on budget right now also, which is, I think it was within $100 of our June numbers last year. So right now, so far, the trend up here is pretty much what we've been seeing down south with everything going on this year. So that's kind of a big grasp of what we were doing in a nutshell, and kind of who we are so far. Yeah.
Questions? Eileen?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you for coming in and talking to us today. I appreciate it. As you know, the golf course has been kind of a point of contention on some fronts. In looking at this year's budget and looking at the past year's budgets, we are always in the red. The golf course is always in the red. At the end of every budget year, those numbers are in parentheses. That's not a happy thing. I was looking back, because I wasn't on council when you did your proposal, I went back and read your proposal. A couple of the things you were planning to do, but I haven't seen any updates from the time this came out until now. Things like, let's see, significantly enhancing the club's social and digital media presence. Can you tell us a little bit about what Green Golf Partners has done in that realm?
Yeah, so there's been a number of things. Number one of the biggest things was change websites. That was a big digital change, because the old one was really outdated. A lot of it is social media driven, and there was a relationship with the chamber also that has changed this year.
Can you explain?
There had been kind of a agreement of some of the funding that came to the chamber that was, I should say, to the golf course, right, ultimately.
It was actually a portion of room tax.
Portion of room tax was going to the chamber for the golf course in exchange for services.
Okay.
And some of that has changed this year, and that relationship was okay. They had a lot going on too. It wasn't just necessarily in, it was okay. They did a lot of good things. Wasn't utilized maybe as much as what we wanted to. And then with the change of the room tax, or the anticipated change, it was agreed upon by both to say, okay, let's not continue with that.
So are you saying the chamber's no longer advertising for the golf club?
They were actually producing emails, a lot of the posting.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're no longer producing that for us.
So who's doing that now?
We are.
Okay. I did go on Facebook today, and I was looking at the golf club's postings, and I've noticed they're few and far between. That really doesn't align with what you had promised. I will point that out, of significantly enhancing. I thought I saw maybe 2 or 3 posts a month. I do social media for the company I work for, and I know that's not significant.
Yeah.
One of the other things you had said, you were going to protect the quality of the asset and restore the value of the brand. That's kind of a vague, I'm a marketing manager, so can you explain what that means and how you've been working towards that?
Well, the biggest part towards that was going to building that relationship back up, and that's where the branding goes in. It was clear from what we were told and what we were found out and what we saw that there was a disconnect, and the brand had changed. And a lot of that was to do with the food and beverage was also leased out separately for quite some time. And the 2 personalities at that point did not get along at all. So there was a lot of disconnect there, which also enhanced the disconnect with community. So one of that, when we talk about changing the brand, was part of changing, the community relations, truthfully. Plus, we did change the brand itself. We added 2 new brands and logos and did that, yes.
Okay. So how would you say you've improved the relationship with the community? I know you haven't installed or added the discount for city residents. And that's just city residents, right? That's not like
No.
surrounding communities, or
Well,
does that
we-
include the surrounding communities?
Yeah, we
as
ended
well?
up doing Oneida County,
Oh,
because
that's great.
if you did
Okay.
just Rhinelander, and financially, business-wise, if you did just that, because one of the goals was also to build the off-season revenue sources, because, we know what happens June 15th till Labor Day. So that had to be changed too, and if you focus squarely on Rhinelander, you weren't going to get as much of a draw as if you could. So it was also very financial to say, okay, we can give Rhinelander and Oneida County, that's going to help the golf course overall.
Okay. Is there any way you can get back to us with maybe, you said you've taken over the marketing and the emails out to your partners or to the people who are members. Can you provide us with some of that information? I don't belong to the golf club. I don't play golf. So
Sure, yeah.
I would sure like to see some of the marketing materials you've put together and how you've enhanced the website, maybe what the old one looked like compared to the new one.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I'd love to see. That's what I was hoping you were going to provide us
and
with
we
today.
have our own, and we have our, we provided an app and all that, and you've been discussing with our marketing director, he has a marketing calendar.
Okay.
That straight out that says, here's what you're doing. And these guys or Kyle is one of those big leads that says, hey, here's what we're going to do. So we say, hey, what do you guys want to do? What are the new things? Now, granted, this year has been thrown off our schedules a lot, because you couldn't do a whole lot. You couldn't do any F&B. That changed a lot, because now we don't have fish fries, couldn't start them. Said, okay, now are we going to go in that direction, or are we going to be, officially operational? Which is what is ending up happening. It's actually pretty efficient right now. Kind of wait and see what you can do. You know. And one of our big goals was try to drive towards events and try to grab events and whatnot. And we've done a lot of that and tried that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've had weddings and things like, I know I'm on the board for Nathan, so we do our golf scramble, and we're doing that in July out there. Really looking forward to that, yeah. The other thing I did is I did look at the calendar of events on the Facebook page, or not on the Facebook page, but the website. There were no events listed. So if we could get that updated, that would be great too. Okay, I look forward to seeing a little more, solid info from you guys as far as numbers and that kind of thing.
I can have our marketing director, Dylan, contact you directly.
Well, I think everybody on council would kind of
Or
like to know.
yeah,
So, yeah,
sure,
if they could send it to Val, and then she could send
Sure,
it out to the rest
yeah.
of us, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tom?
Eileen touched on a few of the things that I was curious about as well. I understand that this year is a tough year because of COVID, but in past years, before COVID struck, I really didn't even know you guys existed, to tell you the truth. So marketing in the past, if you don't play golf, you're not going to be looking for it. Marketing in the past, I haven't really seen any kind of advertising for the golf course in the past either. Never saw commercials on TV, never heard anything about it on the radio. If it was, it's so far and few between that it could easily get missed. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. But what are your future plans to up this marketing? Because I think that's where, my personal opinion, I'm a professional artist, and I have to market myself like crazy to get work. And so I know that marketing can't be low man on a totem pole. Marketing's got to be like almost number one for stuff like this. So
Yeah.
what are your future plans?
And depends on the budget. That's always was a big driver on that one, and that was quite honestly one of the issues that we were always tackling with the potential of what the room tax was going to be, and could we collect and grab some of that to really open it up. I think the best thing to do at this point is we can give everybody kind of what your marketing plan looks like, because I don't have that specifically in front of me to say here's exactly what those details are and what they've been talking about, what you can and can't do. So that's probably the best thing I can do right now.
Where would you say the majority of your budget goes?
As far as the marketing budget,
As far as the whole thing?
majority of the operational expenses, as you look at it by department, goes into grounds. That's always the biggest key in a golf course, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Andrew?
I guess this is more for Zach again, or Attorney Sorensen, but I think we need to sit down as a council with Wendy and whatever, after you get your information to us or whatever, and dig a little deeper into this, just because, yeah.
Say that in addition to Eileen's reviewing the original agreement, and I know Attorney Sorensen and I late last week reviewed the agreement as well, so we've got a copy of it now, and to understand the obligations that both Green Golf Partners has as well as the city in the relationship, I would agree that, we can have in the work sessions we had last week, we didn't touch the golf course, right? And I think there is good reason to continue to have some dialogue about what the expectations are and continue to keep the lines of communication open between the city and the relationship we have with these guys.
I have one last question.
David was up.
Okay, go ahead.
Forgive my microphone. So I moved to the city of Rhinelander itself 3 years ago, 2017. Actually, tomorrow is my 3-year anniversary in the house I live in. I didn't even know where the golf course was until a member of the council actually took me out there after I had been elected in 2018. I do understand from echoing somewhat Thomas Barnett has said, I don't play golf. So I'm not necessarily looking for that, but I didn't even know where it was. I have a couple points and questions here. One, I stated that it's been in the red every year. So the two questions I have for that: one, how much in the red, and what is that trend? Because when we say it's in the red, what we're saying, I believe, and Zach or somebody else can correct me, is that the city is subsidizing this. I don't inherently have a problem with a municipality subsidizing, taxpayers subsidizing recreational enterprise, especially in a tourist area. That's fine, but I think it needs to be a very honest and direct conversation about what that subsidy is, what those expectations are. So I would like to know first the actual numbers for the last 3 years, and then also the trend, where that trend is. And then the second thing, you talked about a discount. I assume we're talking about greens fees discounts?
Correct.
Okay. So the distinction for me, I was kind of surprised to hear you say all of Oneida County. The distinction for me was a discount is for the fact that Rhinelander City taxpayers are subsidizing this. So the question that comes up in my mind is Oneida County contributing to the golf course as well, or is it just Rhinelander City?
No, the Oneida County does not. But what we're trying to do is encourage more play outside of just Rhinelander to help play, which helps subsidize the golf course. That's ultimately what we're trying to do.
I understand it. It brings in more customers.
Correct.
And therefore, even if the fees are discounted, you have a broader base you're pulling from. I get that, but the logic of it there is, and I've seen this not just with the golf course, but with a number of services and such that the city seems to pay in a larger portion. Our city taxpayers. Sorry. Is it on? Yep. That they seem to pay a little bit. They're paying more into it, so there's a sort of a desire to balance that out. We're having microphone issues. I don't know if you noticed. So The last thing that I wanted to point to was, is there any partnership with other courses to do an in-kind for membership with other courses? I'm not myself a golfer, but I do know golfers, and I know that they don't always like to play on the exact same course all the time. So I'm curious if that's a branch, an avenue you've gone into to pull kind of regionally, to offer if somebody's a member of a golf course in some other area of the Northwoods, to have an in-kind partnership.
Do you have anything set up, Kyle? No, not yet, no.
Pinewood does a really low rate.
Can you use the mic, please?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Pinewood, our competitor, does a really low rate. It's a 3-year membership for about $60 a year. So for us to partner with them, I don't think they would do that.
Okay. Could we, do you have numbers that you could give for right now? Or is
I
that-
do.
You do. All right.
I can tell you in 2016, this is just from the budget. Anybody can go online and see this. If you go to the 2020 budget on the city's website. In 2016, we were $75,631 in the red. In 2017, the actual was $168,663. In 2018, which was the first year you guys took over, it was $152,747 in the red. And when the budget was created, the 2019 estimated actual was going to be around $174,000 in the red. So, I mean, it hasn't really changed significantly in the last few years. It looks like 16 was a bully year for us. It was less than, or, only half of what it's been operating at the last couple of years. The 2019 was budgeted to be $181,000 in the red. So I guess like I said, I had one more question, and that was basically, how do we turn it around? Because right now it's a big green hole that the city's throwing money into, and I'd really like to know if you foresee the city ever making money on it. I mean, it's been 30 plus years, and from what I've heard from several people in the know, is that it's never shown a profit in 30 years.
It's a tough one, and when we look at the numbers, and I think some of the ones that you're quoting, we look at NOI, the cash, that's truly what it costs, because in those numbers, right, Wendy, there was a lot of depreciation and a lot of other numbers. So when you look at the loss, what we had was 115 loss in 18, 87,000 loss in 2019, and that was with an unbudgeted almost $23,000 HVAC full
Sure.
install. And that's why our NOI, we're budgeting 70,000 this year. So we're going that direction, but
Okay.
it's not real easy, because what you're not seeing right now is you're not seeing significant revenue increases.
Right.
That's the real challenge right now. And it's been a number of things, but getting there, that's going to be a tough one. One of the things we've never said from the very beginning, is it going to be 100% zero? That's a really tough one, because everybody thinks there's a silver bullet to do it right away, and we know it's not, And maybe it is marketing. Maybe there is a whole nother direction with TV and radio, which we haven't looked at, because that's fairly expensive at times. We've looked at billboards on, on the highways, and, what's major outlets, because you got to be pretty directive. And when you talk about golf and when you're looking at the whipsaw, you have to be very directive at what you're wanting to do and what you want to go after.
Go ahead, Dave.
David.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answers, and I really appreciate your time. And one thing that I want to make clear is that I think what's really important, I'm not trying to rake you over the coals or say that this is your fault, because I think that gets to the crux of it when you say 30-plus years. What we really want is we want a partnership that, where we really directly address if this is going to need a subsidy moving forward, if it's never really going to turn around, that's not necessarily, that's just a fact, a social fact. It's not something you're doing wrong. And so I definitely wanted to make sure that it's not coming across that way, at least from my part. But it definitely needs to have, we need to have a very rigorous and thorough discussion and partnership between the city and your management company.
And we've had that previously with other councils, and never have hid the fact, and one of the things that we've discussed is I don't felt like we've ever had a good, solid test, a litmus test that says, okay, this was a good year. We didn't have weather issues. We didn't have ice damage. We didn't have going through our third food and beverage director. We didn't have COVID-19. We haven't had that where we felt like, okay, this is a true good test of what this could be and what does those rates look like, to be honest. I mean, that's the way it is. There's challenges all over the place. So.
And if I could ask one more question, I'll try to be quiet.
Yeah, if your mic is on.
Yeah, my mic is on,
There you
thanks. Since this needs to be reciprocal, right, it needs to be a partnership, is there anything that, since you're here in front of us, that you would like to see from this council that would help you? So we're asking you questions and asking for information. Is there anything that can go the other way that we could work on as we're trying to sort out the finances of the city, planning for the future of the city, and such?
And that's a great question, and something that with the new council we haven't talked a lot about, to be honest. We've had different now. 3 different city managers that it will be. There's been a lot of change. And so what our goal was to maintain really well and try to see what we can push the envelope with that, with different programs and, the whole day club last year, we're trying different things to really see what we can do. As far as support that's always been from the city, it's been great to listen and hear what can we help do. And from us, it's always been just working together. I know that one of the big issues has always been with the ski club, right?
Ski club and the Heel Creek.
Yeah, and working together with them to make that work so that there's multiple usage, and it's always continually word of mouth with the golf course too. Yeah. It isn't just, okay, great, you're here, we don't have to talk about it. That's a constant.
Where are you? What can you say about the Heel Creek partnership there?
We were open to anything, whatever the city wanted to do and help. That's our directive, to work together. So, and I think it kind of went quiet in fall.
Yeah, the whole idea of the Heel Creek project and how it relates to the golf course. I mean, the two things go hand in hand. The golf course is there; it's a perfect hub for that because of the existing facilities. As of right now, the Parks Department, and with a lot of volunteer help, is actually doing quite well with some trail development, and we're starting to see this thing move in a positive direction, and hopefully it'll be utilized even more so than it already has been. And what we're really looking forward, I think Kyle and John and myself, are the day that there's enough use out there that it actually warrants paying somebody to be in the business, allowing them to come in and maybe have something to drink, something to eat, or just warm up. So I think that's what we'd really like to see.
Yeah, I guess I would say, I would add to that. My vision, and what I see the golf course as not just a 6 months, 5-6 months place out of the year. I see, Jeremy does a great job with the property out there and the trails, and I think it can be much bigger and greater. I think it can be a destination for people in the fall and also in the winter, and I think we need to try and capitalize on that. And I don't know how that I don't know how that fits with Green Golf Partners, but I think that a bigger vision and goal, I think some great things could happen out there to try and turn things around.
That was always part of our bigger goal, was more use in the off-season with the events. And we did get quite a bit and grew in the event business last year. The last couple of years, there was definite strides to nothing,
right,
to some Christmas parties. However, you know, we'll see what this year brings. Right
Yeah, and
now.
I think it's getting there. We're moving in that direction. Obviously, things aren't all put into place yet, but you know, more trails, maybe using expanding the ski trails to, you know, not on the greens and places like that, but areas where it's not going to affect the grass area. To expand that trail system, all that kind of stuff together, I think could build a better destination.
Yeah, because we'll tell you the good or the bad. You know, we're not going to say,
yeah,
can't do it. You know, we'll tell you the good and the bad for everything, like Joe said.
Carrie.
So, as a number of us have said, we're not golfers, but I'm just wondering if there's like a day or something that, or an event that you guys can maybe do specifically for people who haven't golfed before, and you know, maybe, you know, let them, you know, teach them how to do it. And I mean, that's something I would probably do, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So to just go out there and swing a club, I don't think would be productive. But to have a day where maybe there's a little instruction, and then you know, have people who've never played before give it a go, and who knows, you might make new customers or something. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious if that's an idea that maybe you guys have thought of already, or if you've done that in other places that might work here.
Yeah, Kyle has a lot of stuff going on with that, and you'll see some more stuff coming out now that we know what, you know, we can and can't do, and are figuring out what people are comfortable with. You know, it's not as much up here as it is down south, but you know, starting to figure that out, and now stuff is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, you know, you wouldn't want it on a day where you have really good golfers and they're slowing, you know, their game up or something like that. But I think to make it an opportunity to have very beginner golfers go out there and give it a try might be worth your while.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from anybody? Thank you, guys. I appreciate you being up here and
Thank you for your
talking to
time.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for being here, Doctor. Item E, discuss June 16 and 17 work sessions. I'm sure the mayor wanted to briefly touch on this. I just wanted to say I know that I've heard a lot of positive things from staff members. They appreciated being able to talk to all of us. I thought it was very productive, and I know Zach has some things that he wanted to add about that as well.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think it was a great opportunity to run the gamut of issues, right? We kind of, I think if you're like me, you walked out of there thinking, holy smokes, we covered all of the issues we probably could, and there's always more. But I just wanted to draw your attention. I had a couple of things in there that I posed as questions, more as observations, and things for the council and staff to think about as we go forward. There's probably a lot of redundancy you'll probably heard as you either paged through mine or heard staff speak about them. But I felt like they were very productive, and I think the mayor certainly wants feedback from the community, and it'll probably come up at his listening session. But to the extent that the public was paying attention, I think it was great to have the live stream of those, so that way folks could weigh in on their own time and at their own pace to hear and see what staff had shared. So, you know, I hope that it was a good example of what can happen when city staff and the council come together to have a dialogue. And I felt it was very productive from that standpoint, and to throw a lot of things on the table. Certainly wasn't a session to solve things, but identify a really big picture as we move into planning for the 2021 budget, as well as any amendments to the 2020 budget that we're in this year, since there's been a number of developments and things that the council probably didn't anticipate as it prepared the budget for this current fiscal year. Tom.
Yeah, I actually got feedback from constituents after the live stream of the work session, and they were very impressed that the council would sit down and have that discussion with the department heads, and they felt that it was a very positive, progressive, forward-moving thing that the city council did. And I am extremely proud to have been a part of that. And I think what we did those 2 nights, giving them a voice, our department heads a voice to actually tell us their concerns and their issues, and it gave us a clearer insight on what is needed to be done to move the city forward as well. So I think the majority of our constituents were very positive about that. So I'm thankful that Mayor Frederickson and you guys put that together. I think that was a great thing. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Item F, consideration of liquor license for Misfits Saloon LLC, which is located at 70 North Brown Street, which is the Old Sackett's Bar. I'm going to turn this either to Zach or Steve to give us a little bit of insight into that.
So this item, as was just mentioned, it was the former Sackett's Bar, and it was a liquor license that the city clerk's office, or an application that the city clerk's office had received. I know both the police department and the fire department or inspection staff went through the property, and I know Attorney Sorensen and I had a conversation with Terry out at the property last week. You all have probably been by it or have seen it, or maybe you've been in it. I have not been in it, so I can't speak to that. But I can say that from the standpoint of the city, that there were a number of questions raised about what the plans were going forward with the liquor license, and I'll turn it over to Steve. But at this point, we wanted to make sure that the council had an opportunity to talk about potentially some of the concerns that have been raised about the occupancy or the potential for occupancy again in that building.
Yeah, the recommendation is to the council tonight that we don't want to deny the license, but we don't want to grant the license because the facility really doesn't meet code. And why would you give a license to a place that doesn't meet code? It would be like an unusable license. So the concept was that the owner was, or the prospective owner, was told that if he could come together and show a plan that was legitimate, that had the cost figures, that had the work that was going to be done, the improvements that were going to be made, so that we knew that the building would be code compliant, then there really was no other reason not to grant the liquor license. So the request tonight would be that you would table this request to the next meeting and give them an opportunity to put the stuff together that would allow the building inspector in his role, Terry in his role, to make sure that you would have a compliant facility. Because the other thing is, we don't want to grant them a license and then shut the place down, and then you've got a liquor license that's not being used because they can't use the facility. So the concept was that if we could table this at least till the next meeting, that would be appropriate.
David.
Motion to table until July 13th.
Second.
Larson, second.
Motion by David, second by Andrew Larson. Discussion.
Actually, go ahead, Carrie. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, is the building closed currently, or is it being operated by Sackett's right now?
I don't know that.
They're closed right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom, did you have something to add?
Can you tell us, maybe you can't, I don't know, the specifics of what is not to code in the building?
I think there's some concerns, facade being one of them. I don't think the city necessarily has a laundry list of issues, but I think through the walkthrough and that, there were some things that were identified. And I think, as Steve said, we really just want to work with them to get a plan, what their future looks like, that it isn't just throw the open sign up and welcome the public back in for the sake of, health and public safety concerns. There's also some apartments upstairs, dwelling units, and I don't know, that's independent of the request, of course, but it's all one building. And so I think it's just kind of checking some of those boxes to ensure compliance with code, given there's an opportunity without a license at this point.
Yeah, there's some current violations that are serious violations. Okay. That deal with electrical and some other issues that you just can't overlook. You can't give them time to fix. You got to deal with it.
All right, thank you.
Any other?
One more question.
Carrie.
So whoever is applying for this Misfits Saloon license, are they the owner of the building currently? Did they
It's our
buy the-
understanding they have an offer. It's probably contingent upon
Getting the
granting a license. And I don't personally have that information, but I think through some information that's been shared with us,
Okay.
that's the case.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item is on page 27, would be item G. It's consideration of resolution number 2020 it's actually 2020-12. There's a, it's listed in your pack or on your agenda as 11, but it's 12. Non-union working resolution for 2020. And I don't know if Zach wants to start. Wendy may have some information on this that she wishes to share.
Yeah, as my understanding, annually the council would pass this resolution or a similar resolution. Essentially, the 2020 budget calculated a cost of living adjustment for non-union employees, and the rates are listed in there. It's also been the practice to pass the resolution incorporating other benefits beyond the cost of living wage adjustments. Wendy can speak to some of the details, but it's more of a formality, and generally it would be passed at some point after the budget's been passed, which we're certainly well into the 2020 budget year. But that's the background and the information. I don't know if Wendy has anything further. Certainly she probably would be happy to answer any questions as well.
She's shaking her head no. David.
I just have one small detail. The first whereas clause needs to not say whereas the Finance, Wage, and Salary Committee deems, but instead the Common Council of Rhinelander, the Finance Committee doesn't exist.
I would concur.
Gerald.
Along that line, there's a reference to that committee.
Is he on? Oh, Jim's saying he can't hear you. Gerald, is your mic on?
Are there two references, Gerald, in there? Okay. Mm-hmm. And the next whereas in there as well.
So can I just, because it's kind of like my job to make sure we do it right, would you bring a motion then,
Mike,
David,
please.
to amend?
Steve, it's not working.
Would you bring a motion to amend the reference to Finance, Wage, and Salary Committee to the Common Council, and any reference to the word committee should be Common Council?
Yes, I can do that. I can make a motion to approve this resolution, amending as well as amending the language to refer to the Common Council rather than the Finance, Wage, and Salary Committee, or simply committee in exchange for council. If I can get a second.
I'll second. Anderson.
Motion by David, second by Gerald. I know that was a lot. Val, do you understand what David's motion was?
Are we approving the resolution, or are we just
That was
approving the
that was
change?
We're approving it with that amendment.
correct. That's what I heard.
Contingent on the change?
Yes.
Can I read this back? And
Sure.
you can make correction. There's a motion by Holt, a second by Anderson to approve the resolution 2020-12, the non-working resolution for 2020, amending the language to refer to common council in place of finance, wage, and salary committee? Is that how you want it
Correct.
to read? Does that make sense, or is, okay.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Was there any other place in here where it mentioned committee that you said, David?
Well, the second whereas says said committee, so said council would be,
Okay.
Also, item 3 under general provisions on the next page.
yeah, there's, someone needs to do a search and replace on it.
Well, you meant wherever, replace it wherever.
Yes,
the
yeah,
current-
the motion requests that it's replaced wherever it's found,
Correct.
so.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Does this need to be roll call,
I was
Steve?
going to say that same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, before we do that, I know we heard a lot from a lot of people about a lack in pay or many years in getting some pay. So I think it's prudent. Val, could you call roll?
Wait,
Oh.
we have-
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, Val.
Yeah,
Carol.
maybe we assume in this that there really isn't anything else being changed except the wage rates?
That's
I will also make one, thank you for the question. There is in the, let me just get the page number for you, the last page, page 30. We added so this is the it was adopted in 2017, is my understanding, after the completion of a Carlson and Detman wage analysis and salary compensation plan review. And the one addition to this is in public works, historically, there's been one classification for streets maintenance workers, when in fact it was very apparent that there were some additional classification of labor that warrants some additional proficiencies and qualifications. And so therefore we added an additional classification in here as, I'm just going to find it here. And I'm going to look to when.
streets and utility?
No. Yeah, where am I? Okay, so on the left column, light equipment operator, fourth from the bottom, we inserted additional classification for a position in the grade F category. So again, to reconcile really the fact that there's, your common laborer and then there's additional proficiencies and skills and experiences. And there had been, I think, since that time, those positions were created, and I'm not sure if they were created in the budget, but basically this is reconciling that addition. And so it's again, a budgeted modification, but I wanted to draw your attention to that as well. And I don't believe, Wendy, there were any other modifications. Certainly was no additions to the grade and step structure, but were there any other changes?
Wendy's indicating no.
I'm seeing a shake of the head, so thank you.
Carrie.
Is this going to be retro back to January 1st of this year?
That's correct. The resolution states, I believe I saw I guess it was right in the third whereas, as effective January 1st, so it would be retro back to the beginning of the calendar year.
Any other discussion? All right. Val, please call roll.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Aye.
Anderson. Holt.
Aye.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, item H. Discuss the phases of reopening council meetings to public attendance. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just going to say, as is the way of the world we live in, the kind of phased reopening, and I think you're seeing that with governmental bodies, you're seeing it with private businesses, nonprofits, et cetera. So the idea was to put this item on the agenda for some discussion. There isn't any action that's being sought, but as we've moved the last number of weeks into various degrees, I don't know if we necessarily have a formal phasing number we're calling this, but at the beginning of the agenda this evening, there was some language about acknowledging members of the public's attendance and addressing the body in the form of public comment, that making contact with the mayor or arrangements being made, if possible, for an in-person presentation. Before that, department heads were brought back into the room, and I think we're trying to reconcile our meetings with Oneida County's phasing recommendations, and I know that they're making regular updates to that based upon the volume and case information that the community is experiencing. So at this point, that would be just the basic comments that I would have about why this is on the agenda, at least just to reconcile maybe what your expectations are or thoughts are going forward.
Tom.
Yeah, I hearken back to what Mr. Sorensen had said a while back ago. It's all or nothing. Either we open it up to the community or we can't, because we can't tell a certain amount of people that they can come in, but you guys can't because we've met our capacity. I think for now that the inviting people to come make public comments and then they have to exit the chambers is probably the best way to go. That way we're still getting public in here to give us their feedback if they have any, but our live stream is always up, and hopefully, I assume it's going to continue to be up even if we're open full board, because it's been such a fantastic utility for the city and our constituents to see everything that's going on. But yeah, I think the decision would have to be, like Ms. Sorensen said, all or nothing, if we're going to go to the route of opening up to the public again.
Carrie.
My question is actually to Tom Kelly. Since you're on the Oneida County board, has Oneida County opened up their meetings to the public?
We had a county board meeting last week, and we met in 2 rooms. We started out in 2 rooms, and we moved into the board room, and we were well separated, and we had a very small audience, also social distancing. So no, we are not really open to having 30 or 40 members in the audience at this point. So no, we're still in phase 2 of opening. So.
Okay.
Well, Tom, I have a question for you in response to that. So if there was a bunch of people that were to come in, I mean, do you have a plan did Brian Desmond or somebody say what you would do?
We would just show them the door. You're only allowed so many people, and you got 21 council members, an attorney, and a recorder, the county clerk.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 23, 24 people in there just for that. And then what we did is, if we had the health department came in and gave a little talk and left. And this department came in, gave a little talk and left. We had a public safety meeting last Thursday in the board chamber, and there's 5 of us, and we had a recorder, and people came in, gave their little talk, and left. And that's the way we're handling it right now. So we're still in phase 2 of a 3-phase reopening.
Sure.
Yeah, we're crawling now. We haven't started walking yet. We're crawling.
Gerald had his hand up next.
Well, yeah, I'm not clear what these phases mean in terms of meetings like this. And do we have any specific recommendations from the health department?
For example, phase 1 would be you're allowed 5 people in a room. Phase 2, you're allowed 10 people in the room or a gathering. Phase 3, you can have up to 50 people, say, for example, at a church. So those are the 3 phases. Phase 3 will be pretty close to normal, we hope.
Okay. David?
Thank you. I agree with the sentiment that's been echoed a number of times that it's all or nothing. With regard to, I understand the phases when it comes to private organizations like churches, right? But this is a government. We can't say only a certain number of people. It's open or it's not. I think that for the time being, I really feel strongly that we should invite people who want to speak. I think the right to personally address your government is a really deep-seated culture in the U.S. And so if somebody has something to come and say to us face to face, I think that that should be something we do. If we're going to allow audience members that aren't speaking, then we have to be ready for a room of 50 and be okay with that. And if we're not okay with that,
Right.
I mean, because we can't say, well, we're going to allow the first 10 people that show up. We've been told that we can't do that.
Right.
So I think that for now, I mean, that inviting people to come and speak is quite prudent.
Yeah, at least another month.
Carrie?
So my other question is most places have a maximum capacity, posted, of how many people can be in the room. So I'm wondering, maybe Terry, through the inspection department, if this room has been determined as to what the maximum capacity could contain.
COVID capacity, Terry.
No, I'm not talking COVID, I'm talking in general.
We don't
Yeah, actually, I worked with Jeremy Biolo, and the sign is posted right outside the main door, but understand that that is strictly for a normal circumstance. That's not under any social distancing guidelines or anything like that. It would be a maximum under a normal, non-COVID lifetime, so
And what is that number?
I'd have to go out there and double check. It's a pretty
I'd just be
large number.
curious as to what that number is, if it's 50 or if it's
Yeah,
more
I
than
don't, our attorney is going to,
Jeremy
check for
posted
us.
it according to code. Right above your head, Steve.
152.
152,
Thank you.
And there's absolutely no way that you could do any type of social distancing with that number.
right?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with David. I think, if somebody wants to speak and they want to come in and address us in a orderly fashion, and then leave, I'm all for that. I think that's great. But I also agree too, David, you gotta, if you're gonna let one in, you gotta let everybody in to our room where we're at, so.
Or 152
Right,
of them.
152.
Up to 152. And then we move to a stadium.
Right. So, Zach, what are you looking for on
Wanted to have a discussion and acknowledge that, the public, that we're considering the public's concern about wanting to address their government. And I think one thing we can do as staff is come up with maybe some, we could do some calculations based upon our seating in here and just have some rule of thumb about what our capacity might be. Not that we're going to exclude people, and we can't, as has been mentioned, but, as we're thinking about the mayor's listening session on Wednesday, when we're inviting the public to that listening session in this room, it's not all that different than when you're visiting a retail store, and we're going to try to, have people register perhaps and kind of have some order to it. And I think that's what's been said about our public comments. So, as long as, we're continuing to hear your feedback and what your constituents are concerned about. I know when the mayor has talked about this in the past, it's really a lot about tolerance and people's personal concern, and then bearing in mind the health department's guidance as well. So I think that, we've gotten enough information on this matter for the topic tonight.
So it's June 22nd, and our next meeting is July 13th. So if the public decides that they want to make comment on the July 13th meeting, how how can we best inform them that they're going to be allowed to do that?
Well, I think a couple of ways. We certainly want to encourage folks that don't feel comfortable being here in person to continue to send that feedback through you or to the clerk or to the mayor. And I think the second part of that is if they do want to attend, to register their intent to be here, so that way we can either acknowledge them on the agenda formally as we have done with presentations and such, and I think to get the mayor's opinion, but I would ask the attorney if he's got any additional input. But I think that at this point, we're going to do our best to accommodate folks that want to be present. And as has been said about live stream, if people are able to continue to monitor live stream, that's the best case scenario. I think if people don't have a desire to make a comment to the public or to the council as a whole.
Yeah, the whole concept was, this was the first phase which we tried tonight, which was to let people speak, and it seemed to work fairly well. You notice they spoke for most part and left, and we never had an unusually large number of people in the room. But I do want you all to be very cognizant that if 50, 60 people showed up, well, if 10 people showed up and said, I demand the right to sit here, we'd have to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
We could not continue to meet. Yeah. And so just understand that that's your alternative.
Right.
If you have civil disobedience, that's how you have to handle it. You're not going to put people in chains and drag them out of the room. You're going to take the other solution, which a city council just did in Wisconsin this last week, when a group of people came in and they said, we're not leaving. The Constitution says we have a right to be here. By the way, it does not. As a constitutional lawyer, I teach it. I know that. But the reality is that the mayor in that community said, well, I hereby adjourn the meeting. We're not going to violate the law, and we're not going to put people at risk. We'll see you in 2 weeks, And that's really what your alternative is. So the phasing in is probably the safest way, letting people that want to speak. If we can look at the dynamics of the room and have audience. But the good news is everybody can watch this, and if somebody has a problem, this is one of the things the mayor and I talked about. What if a person doesn't have a TV, or what if they don't have? Well, then we may need as a community to put a public television somewhere where they can go look at it. That may be a step, but right now we've heard no complaints about anyone saying I didn't have access to a TV or a computer or anything to watch it. But if we did, that's a concern. Maybe we go to the schools, the library or something and try to come up with a solution. But I think, as you've seen across the United States, when we've opened up kind of willy-nilly, the numbers have gone up. And until we have a society that's entirely comfortable, we should not put any of you at jeopardy. That's not fair to any of us. But I also want you to know what the alternative is. The alternative is you simply say adjourned and you leave. Because you can't put yourselves at risk. That's not worth it. And we're not going to create civil disobedience and all that kind of nonsense because, we're going to deal with it as kind, concerned people. That's the only comments I would have.
Thank you for clarifying. Tom?
Yeah, I would also like to say that to help get the word out about how we're going to phase in the public comment and everything, we all have the ability to communicate with our constituents through social media and such. We can easily put out statements explaining, like for myself, just speaking for myself, I'm very engaged with my constituents on my Facebook page, and they talk to me all the time through emails and stuff. And I think putting that out there in social media, and not to mention, a whole bunch of people just heard it through live stream, what we're doing,
I just wanted to make sure that if we were going to allow that it wasn't what if. It was, we're going to allow it, and people know that they can do that, and this is how you do it.
Yeah. I think with the live streaming and just putting it out there on social media, it's going to be fine to let people know.
And my suggestion would be also not just social media, but a press release
Correct.
to, the TV stations, radio stations,
Sure.
newspapers, so that everybody gets the word out.
I agree. Anybody else on the reopening of the council meetings? Okay, next item on the agenda is we have a closed session listed for a possibility. I'm going to read this. If necessary, convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, sub 1, sub C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The two items, item A is discontinuation of a contractual right-of-way agreement, and item B, discussion of extension of consultant's agreement and compensation related thereto.
I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated purpose.
We have a motion by David to go into close.
Barnett, second.
A second by Barnett.
Yes, we will call.
Where do you want to, we're going to do it out here? Just stop the live stream and do it here or go in there? Any,
Let's stay right on here, we did last time.
I think
Okay.
we just stay here.
okay, Val, would you call roll to see if we're going to go into closed?
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson, Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. We're going into closed session. We'll just take 2 minutes before we do that. You got that, Steve?
Yep.
And turn off your mics.
Great job.
Oh, okay, nice. I like that. I like that change a lot.
What change is
Because
that?
again, things falling through the cracks.
A running tally,
All right.
Yep.
Yep.
And we're waiting for
Look out the
Tom.
window.
Tom, we're on.
Hold on. And that's all ready to...
I think you have to announce that we're back.
Okay, we're back from closed. We're into open session. 9:07.
Well, let's deal with number A first.
Okay.
No action taken.
Item A, discontinuation of a contractual right-of-way agreement. The council took no action on item A. And on item B, discussion of extension of consultant's agreement and compensation related thereto.
Okay, I will make a motion to give the authority to the city attorney to negotiate a contract with Zach to expire at the, end of the year? And to bring that contract back to the council on the 13th. The term of the contract would expire on the 27th of July. Does that make sense, there,
The
Steve?
extension of his current consulting contract would be extended to the 27th of July?
Okay. The extension of his contract would extend to the 27th of July. Okay.
Microphone.
Hold on, Eileen, you...
Second the motion.
All right.
Okay, motion by Tom, second by Eileen. Discussion.
I would like to make sure that Val was able
Yeah,
to get that
I agree.
clearly.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, I think.
It was confusing for you.
Or maybe just for me, as Tom pointed out.
Yeah, well, it's me.
I know what you're
no, he
you're
was
getting at, I just want to make sure Val understands it.
Could I have somebody repeat that, please, so I know exactly what it was?
So the motion is, the motion that was made...
Mike, please.
Right, the motion that was made... The motion...
It's late.
The motion that was made by Tom was that we would extend the contract of Zach to the 27th of July, the consulting contract, but that the city attorney would be authorized to negotiate an employment contract that would extend to the end of the year
2020.
Correct.
of 2020, December of 2020.
Yeah.
20.
Any further discussion?
Do we want to clarify what the employment title would be?
I think
They can
that would
all-
be something that you would,
That's something you'll negotiate? Okay.
They could hammer that out, yeah.
Val, are you caught up? Is that good?
Let me read this back to you, and you
Yeah.
tell me. Okay, I have a motion by Kelly. Who was the second on that? Is there?
Eileen?
Second by Daniel, to give authority to the city attorney to negotiate an employment contract to extend to the end of December 2020. I should say who the contract is with. And to extend the contract for the current contract.
Consulting contract.
For consulting.
Okay, the current consulting contract.
To July 27th.
Can't do this with one hand. Of Zach Verwink to July 27th,
Yep.
Correct.
Correct.
2020. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So to give authority to the city attorney to negotiate an employment contract to extend to the end of December 2020 and to extend the current consulting contract.
You
Is
got
that
it.
correct? Of
You got
Zach Fruink.
All right.
Okay, that is,
Okay.
that sounds all right to everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? Val, can you call roll?
Holt,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Daniel, sorry.
Aye.
Anderson. Aye. Mikulowski.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye. Ayes have it.
Aye.
Okay. One item on unfinished business is discuss designating reserves from Fund 444 for parks purposes, including the construction of a maintenance building and refurbishment of Pioneer Park bathroom.
Jeremy's here.
Yeah, do you want to talk first? Or do you want Jeremy to?
I was actually going to ask if we can get Jeremy to come up here and
Yeah, I know Jeremy, you gave us a lowdown, but if you want to just give us a
refresher,
quick and.
make sure we're remembering it right.
All right, so Fund 444 has approximately $113,000 left in it from a borrowing a few years back. And that was for pedestrian trails that the parks and the city was going to use to try and get a grant to make some more of the like chamber type trails. And we failed to get the grants. I tried for them 2 different times. And it's kind of hard because where the trails left off, now we're trying to get access through various backyards and businesses, things like that. So we're having a problem with that. It's time to start, well, we need to use up that money. And I'm in need, the parks is in need of a new garage facility. And my office got moved over to the water department building. So right next door to the water department building's an open lot, and we figured get our garage out of Pioneer Park, clean that area up a little bit, and put a brand new garage at the water department area. So this is just to allow, I need permission from council to open up those funds to allow me to start spending that money to do that, and at the same time I could refurbish a bathroom at Pioneer Park.
Jeremy, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
No, I just wondered if would you use the whole 113,000, or do you have a number in mind?
I'm going to try not to, but that's a good, the bids for the garage itself were anywhere from 120,000 to 150,000, but we're going to do it ourselves, and that's going to drop the cost down considerably. Okay. I think just for getting the supplies alone, it was about $54,000. And then Brian and myself and a few guys from the water department are capable of building this. It's just a big garage. It's all it is, 4 walls and heat and things like that. So, I wasn't planning on doing all that, but we have this opportunity to make, with pickleball going in right now as we speak, to kind of tear down some of the old bathroom at Pioneer Park and make one very nice bathroom there, and along with some landscaping, and that I don't know that it'll take the full amount, but I would bet it would be awfully close. Okay. I'm not going to go over the amount, that's for sure. I'm going to keep a close eye on that.
What would you guys do with the old garage back there?
Right now, I was thinking it could be like fair storage. There are a lot of things outside of the fair building as we speak, and that could be a purpose for that. The roof does leak a little bit in the building right now, And in the parks plans, we haven't really gone through that a ton, but it shows there will be a road, you know, if we choose to go that route in the future, a road will come through and that building will have to be moved anyway or just demolished.
David?
I was going to go ahead and make a motion to designate the reserves from Fund 444 for parks purposes, including the construction of a maintenance building and refurbishment of Pioneer Park bathroom.
Mikulowski, second.
We have a motion by David, second by Kerry Mikulowski.
And just as a point of information for new members, that that doesn't mean that we're done discussing it.
Right.
Usually we would make the motion first and then we would discuss it, but information first is fine. So I'm not trying to, if you had some more to.
Further discussion. Yeah, further. Gerald?
Well, just a question of procedure, I guess.
Gerald, I don't think your mic is on. He's saying that you're... There you go.
When it says discuss, does it also have to say action or something like that in order to entertain this kind of motion?
Only because this is unfinished business and it's been on the agenda several times, you could go ahead and take action. But this is one of those cases where you need to have at least a 2/3 vote in order to approve it, or you should put it on the next agenda for action.
Or you get 2/3.
Okay, further discussion. Yeah, I think my opinion on it is, you know, the goal for the park, coupled with your goal for unity with employees and, you know, not being dispersed, I think it fits. And obviously the bathroom is in need of some major repair and, you know, fixing. So that next to pickleball and having that in an area that is not an eyesore is a great benefit. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think there's anything else more pressing than this, especially since you need to spend the money. That's my opinion on it. Any further discussion? Val, would you call roll?
Barnett.
Aye.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And that's the end.
And that is 2/3 then. Huh?
Yeah, and one other point of clarification, this is why I wanted to put out there is, if you look at your order of your meeting, it says official action may be taken on any item listed on this agenda. So you've notified the public in your announcement that action may be taken on any item. So you are protected.
Correct. Okay, that ends the agenda items. The next meeting will be July 13th,
We have to go
2020
through
at
future
6 p.m.
agenda
Future
items.
agenda items?
You want me to read those off? I can.
No,
Well,
but
I think there's some discussion on it.
I'm sorry, you're right. Is there any future agenda? I know, Tom, we talked about that, and go ahead,
Yeah.
Tom.
I'd like on the future agenda to be placed the discussion about the security cameras on Brown Street at Davenport and Rives.
Got it. Carrie, did you have one?
No.
Gerald?
I had two, I think. One is after the workshops last week and then, well, we heard a little bit about the open records question and reorganizing records so that things can be found, stuff like that. But then Saturday's paper had something that sounded new to me as far as along the records line. And I guess I'm feeling like we need to have a report or maybe a series of reports on how we're proceeding on getting things in order so that things can be located and provided when needed.
Some discussion, so I'm hearing discussion on how to properly order our
Provide
paper
Yeah,
records.
records.
I guess I hear that things are being done, but just like to have a report on that too.
Okay.
The other one is, a few weeks ago, I was thinking in terms of the police department when I asked a question about how Rhinelander treats people who are non-white, who are different from us. And after the eloquent presentation by the young lady today, I'm wondering if maybe we don't need to look a little farther than that and into the community as a whole. And I don't know what the procedure would be, to set up some kind of human relations commission or council or something that would, where we could work in the community to deal with racism of various kinds.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how you, so you're looking for somebody for Zach or for somebody to bring a discussion item? Or Lloyd to be involved,
Possibly.
or?
Well, I was happy with what Lloyd said, but
Sure.
as far as from the viewpoint of the police.
Yep.
But obviously, not everybody's on the same wavelength there.
Okay.
Yeah, if somebody can come up with a proposal, that'd be good. It just seems like something we ought to discuss on an ongoing basis.
All right. David?
I would like to have some space for the council to discuss the golf course in more detail when we have a better set of a collection of information from Green Golf partners. I am wondering if that can be a closed session item, because I think that we need to be able to have a frank discussion as a council. Is that something that could be agendized as a closed session to discuss?
I could politely put that absolutely, but to have the discussion may be a closed session discussion topic. In other words, the parameters of what you're talking about, because you're probably talking about negotiations of a contract.
Okay.
They have a contract that runs, I think we said, through next year. And we'll know that in more detail. We looked at it. I will tell you, staff is already trying to put together the materials that you need to discuss the golf course.
Thank you.
I spent quite a bit of time this last month, and again, looking at it from not the current management, but the perspective of what a municipality has to do to run a golf course and what the real history of the golf course is, the real numbers, because he was very correct when he said, if you read the numbers that are presented in the budgetary system, they really don't tell the correct story of everything. So you have to look at it from a couple different perspectives. There's a lot of discussion you can have on the golf course, but if it's going towards contractual negotiations or things like that, that definitely is in closed session.
Andrew? David covered what you wanted?
Yeah, I would just rather have it sooner than later, rather than wait for them to do whatever. I'd rather get it done.
Eileen?
I just wanted to make the point that to Steve's point about, maybe the numbers are different than what the budget shows. I totally believe that. Unfortunately, what the budget shows is the only thing that the public sees. And so getting a clearer understanding, not only amongst ourselves, but out to the public as to where their tax dollars are going when it is in regard to the golf course would be beneficial.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. July 13th, 2020, next meeting. We're adjourned.